Talking about this week, chapter 5 and 10. Anyone notice we have a quiz already?
Yeah, it seems to be a weekly thing now.
Oh, I just thought it was like every 4 chapters.
No, the first one was just really intense and by 4 chapters, I guess. So this one's just 10 and 5. But today we're focusing just on chapter 5 on the different types of powers and when you would kind of use the different types of powers and different roles of leadership. I have it, hopefully you can see the screen, but I have it right here. And then just kind of more for my own ways, but hopefully it's helpful for everyone else. I also brought up here the actual definitions of each of the type of powers so that, you know, we can kind of reference back to the book and talk about each of those. And then there was a really good in page 152, there's actually a really good table, 5.1, that just talks really quick about the type of the power and then kind of like the cost of each power. That's actually kind of an interesting table to kind of refer to and might be helpful during our discussion. So
yeah, that's good.
I think the ones that are easy to kind of call out are legitimate power, expert power, and referent power. I think those are the ones most common. I mean, I know specifically for myself, like legitimate power, as a store manager, I tend to not use my title necessarily when I'm, asking people to do things, but sometimes, when I'm having to put pressure on situations, I sometimes have to remind, hey, I'm the store manager, because in the Starbucks world, we do have like shift supervisors who are like the acting managers. So like I may work on a shift as a barista under them, but sometimes I have, we might have a butt heads, where I might not agree with their decision making. So I'm like, I might have to pull rank and say, hey, no, we're not going to do it that way. And then, expert power is, I kind of sometimes experience this in the sense that, because I'm tenured with the company, a lot of times I can choose whether or not to help people. A lot of times people rely on me for their help, especially right now in the holiday season. We have a lot of stores that might be understaffed, and me being, in role a long time, and this is my 15th holiday with Starbucks. So like I am staffed, so I got like 4 emails today, or people reaching out for help, asking for me to, kind of solve their problems, which also kind of relies in with the referent power.
Yeah, no, I can relate to that. I mean, basically, with expert power, I mean, we just had a big event here with ASU football. We played UFC, and it was our biggest recruiting event. So we had over like 150 recruits from all over the U.S. show up, and it was just crazy. And it got to the point where our in-house recruiters, basically our director of college recruiting, he was just way too busy. He couldn't handle all these other things. And me being, I was actually there, the longest, and I pick up a lot of quick things quickly. And I started just basically just managing people and telling them, hey, we gotta go. We need someone here. We need someone doing this. We need someone showing these people, where to go, and all those things. And some people didn't like it. They haven't been there longer, but they were much older at the same time. And I'm 23-year-old telling a 29, 28-year-old, what to do. And there's been issues that way that I've experienced with expert power. But it's, I think if you have, I'm sorry. Yeah, basically, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Something came up on my computer. I'm really sorry. But
that's okay.
I will come back to it. I'm sorry.
No, that's a really good example. I like that a lot, Leo. I think a lot of times as leaders, we got to know when to really kind of use those different levels of power. That kind of goes into it. When to when to really focus it in. I think most leaders, although I have to say I've seen some leaders that really do throw around their title and really use a lot of legitimate power and enforce it. And they're like, I'm manager, you have to listen to me. I'm the supervisor. Don't you forget about that. I've seen that. And nobody respects them because they don't share it. There's no sharing of power.
I think that's usually common with newer promotes or new people in role.
Yeah.
I think that has to do more with people who haven't been in power in the past, and it's their first time, like, oh, okay, I have some power now and I'm going to use it, I think that's what it is when it comes to that.
And I gotta say, I think when I first became manager of a Circle K in Arizona, I was 20, 21 years old. My first like big job. No real management experience. That was my first time doing it. It does kind of go to your head a little bit, and you do kind of a little bit kind of strut around, and you kind of learn quickly. At least some people do, and I did. Kind of learn quickly about. Yeah, I can't strut that around because I still don't know squat because I'm new. So back to kind of what Leo was saying, about knowing when to use those type of powers and being able to execute them appropriately and effectively is, that's really important. I think one thing for me for like informational type power, and on our team, we have a kind of a team office meeting every day. And it's kind of like a day of like when someone brings a problem up, and and whoever has that type of information or that expertise in that area kind of speaks up. And it's kind of a sharing of information power, which is really helpful.
I can talk about reward power because I've kind of experienced that personally. So right now I'm in my last year of college, but when I was first in college, I was working in a warehouse where we sold like classic car parts for old school Chevys. And usually the winter time would always get busy, and kind of like as a reward, we would get gift cards, I guess. And I feel like that was good and bad because overall, like our manager would just kind of hand them out, like saying like, oh, you guys are all hardworking. But I think some people just kind of expected that. And I thought that was kind of a negative. Like they wouldn't work as hard because they kind of knew they were getting that like incentive in there. But it was always busy regardless because like those old school cars, you kind of have to, you get those parts in by spring and it usually takes a long time to ship them. So during the winter, that's when everybody would be making their orders. And so usually that's when we'd get those incentives. But I think it was definitely kind of a negative in a way.
So they're really just giving incentives to everyone, no matter what.
Mm-hmm. Granted, it's a really small company. So there's only a few people, like I think, so I was in the department where all this stuff would come in, all the receiving department, and there was shipping too. So it's just basically like 4 guys in a huge hangar of a warehouse. And you can't really monitor everything. I mean, so some people were kind of lazy, but they would still get that same reward for their hard work, I guess you could say, but it wasn't really the same. So I definitely think there are good things about it. Like I feel like some people do take that seriously when they hear like certain rewards, but that might be more of an individual thing more than a group thing too. Mm-hmm. Like if like that's solely based on your own performance rather than, oh, I know we're going to be busy, so we're just going to hand these out. So that's my take on the reward power.
I think it's interesting to, one thing I was thinking of is like what happens when you use the wrong power or what happens when you use the power incorrectly. Like the coercive power, I was thinking, I typically see newer managers use the coercive power, which if you're using threats of like discipline and things like that, it usually puts people in threat state. And what it usually leads to is compliance, not commitment. So that's what, you know, like as soon as you remove that manager, everything falls apart again, or people go back into their bad habits. They're not, you know, they don't, you know, they haven't gotten their buy-in. And then, you know, with the reward situation, if everyone gets the same reward, you know, it's like when you do a group project and two people do the work, but everyone gets the good grade. It fosters resentment towards the people who are not performing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think like for coercive power, I think legitimate power are two peas in the pot, basically. Uh, you know, because you have the title, you're able to, you know, be coercive, you know, take advantage of your title. So I think those two, you know, go together overall. Could go, depending on how you want to use the power, of course, you know, like you were stating, Casey.
Does anyone have any insight or thought in the information or ecological power? I was thinking kind of like the information, like people who don't give up the information, you know, they feel like hoarding the information gives them the power or the knowledge, or because those were the new, I've studied power in other classes, but it was only the first 5. Because it says information power is based on access to and distribution of data. Those in roles of span organizational boundaries, marketers, salespeople, public relations, and staff. So I guess in the business setting, the people in marketing who have the customer data that the other department wants, they have the power. Would that make sense?
Well, I mean, each team is going to rely on each other. Like, you know, there's, you know, you got to rely on one team to provide the data to the other team in order to complete the work, or in order to fulfill whatever they need to fulfill. You know, so, you know, there is some informational power, and yeah, they could withhold the power and that information, and that would be a real jerk thing to do. But you know, I think filling your knowledge and expanding your knowledge base and understanding, and like you said, Casey, you have tenure at your business, you know, with Starbucks. So I think you also possess a lot of informational power because you understand how Starbucks works. You understand how the holiday season works. So you also have the information power to share with other people. So you can choose to answer those emails, or you can choose not to.
Yeah. But the book's example says about managers have inside knowledge about personnel moves and possible mergers and acquisitions. So I guess
that's true too.
that's I was thinking of transparency in your leadership, letting your team know. But
Well, that
sorry,
sounds
go
to
ahead,
me
Leo.
like where you can use that information to set someone else up for that job, you know, and you give them like, hey, like, you know, there's a job opening up, and you're like, okay, this guy has the best, you know, is the best candidate. So I'm gonna start giving him those little tiny, you know, things that he just needs in order to push him, you know, over the top to get there. Or if you don't want someone else getting it, you have that knowledge where it's like, all right, if I tell him this and this and this, and he does it, he won't get it, which is great, you know. So
you mean organizational politics?
Oh, I mean, yeah, we can go into that too if we want to. But yeah, I mean, I think I was trying to relate it to you know, your type of job where you could, you know, someone could use that type of power.
Yeah.
What about the cultural difference part that we have to discuss as well? What do you guys think about that?
What was that?
Was that chapter 10?
What was the question? Sorry.
Well, there's 2 parts of this discussion. The first part was the different types of powers, and then we also have to discuss the cultural difference and how that influences the way we interact with leaders.
It's interesting because I just came out of a business cultural communications class, and in that class, like for example, Americans are typically more direct and more upfront. Whether in other cultures, it's important to build that relationship. So you can't really go into another culture, like for example in China, and use your positional power, because like partnerships, and you have to, in order to get a business meeting over there, you have to be referred by someone who knows you personally. It's all about partnership. So you can't even get a meeting with someone unless you've been referred and you actually use that person's name, which gets you in the door. So it's almost like in that culture, legitimate power doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I'm just taking that class right now, and yeah, funny enough, and yeah, no, I agree with you that with that, you know, and at the same time with me, like I wasn't born here in the U.S. I was born in Peru, and with my dad, he still owns a big company over there and works with many international companies outside of Peru, and the way they do business is just completely different from, you know, just hey, here's my bid and that's it, you know, it's done, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, it really depends on the context of the, you know, the cultural context and stuff of, you know, and it, you really, if you're going to go global, and even just here in the United States, understanding diversity and cultural differences, you know, you really need to understand and have a willingness and open mind, in order to be able to appropriately communicate and deploy your type of power to different cultural backgrounds, and be respectful, because, you know, if you were, you cannot talk to, you know, you can't be as pushy or as direct with somebody from, say, from India as you could with someone from the United States. You know, as you know, or, you know, like your example with China, you know, it's different with their culture, and you know, I learned that a lot, not just with like Circle K, but like in, you know, when I was with the call center and with my leadership there, with many different cultures. So it's definitely very different, and understanding the different cultural backgrounds.
Yeah, that's what one of the main things that in my class, one of the main terms is, you know, having the ability to be cultural intelligent. It's basically, you know, going out there and studying whoever you're gonna, you know, the culture of whoever you're gonna about to do business with, you know, understanding their norms, understanding, you know, what is disrespectful and what is not. You know, let's, you know, as a huge example, I would say like us. Actually, an example would be like I think in China, if you're going to a business meeting and you have to fly from China all the way to the United States, you have to be wearing a suit the whole entire flight. And if you're an American, you know, who we're usually fly, you know, and more comfortable, we want to be comfortable when we fly, right? We're flying to China and we're about to meet a partner at the airport. They see us with jeans, or they just see us with, you know, pants or, you know, sweatpants, etc. They're just gonna think that we're not professional in their eyes.
Yeah,
You know,
we're disrespecting.
And
Nicolo,
exactly.
go ahead.
No, that's it. That was it.
I was gonna say Nicolo's gonna say something. What were you gonna say?
Oh yeah, just gonna bring up some about. So my uncle is like a design engineer for Ford. He designs their seats, and I think it's definitely important to have that cultural intelligence because he goes to both Mexico and China, which are both very different.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna assume for now, and so I think understanding like how to communicate and how to like learn about their culture and understand them is important from a business aspect too, because if your employees can't learn to get along and communicate, you're missing out on that market there. Let's say if they can't get along in China, that's a big loss for Ford or whoever's going there. Same with Mexico.
Yeah.
Or you can lose a business deal quickly. Yeah. You know, like Leo was saying, like everything can be offensive, like in gift giving, calling.
Oh yeah, there was
by
a section on that in one of what class is that you guys are you're in Leo right now?
Intercultural communication.
What is that COM what? Because I feel like I just took that.
400.
Okay.
It's intercultural business communication, like, you know, gift giving. Handkerchiefs can be offensive in some cultures because handkerchief signifies death.
Yeah, and there's something about like flowers too. Like if you give a certain amount of flowers, that represents like death or something. So it's definitely tricky, but it's something that you need to know.
Even saying.
Yeah, I mean, like for my dad's business, he was able to build a big business in Peru, security. He gives mines security. We're talking about copper, gold, silver, yada,
He gives
yada,
what?
etc. He has a security company that gives security to mines.
Okay.
Gold, copper is the biggest one. And I remember years ago, he was working with an American company, and my mom told me a story where it's like, yeah, when your dad was, he basically put the bid for the company. He had, I think, 5 months or so until they came to Peru to actually meet with him. He made all his top executives just go and learn English. Literally, he came out. He also made contract got a few people to paint the building, make it look brand new, just clean, make sure everything was clean. Made some of the security workers too, take some English classes, everything to try to impress the Americans, because we look at America as a first top-notch first world country, and we're a third world country over there. So for us losing a deal this big, it's huge, if we get it or not. And it ended up happening that, the Americans love my dad and the way he basically presented his business module and everything he stood for. And, they had the same cultural relationships when it came down to business. So that helped them a lot. Now that, so Mexican company bought out the Americans, and yeah, I'm not speaking anything bad about Mexico or anything, but my dad has had trouble inside and out with that Mexican company, and he wants to drop them, but he can't because the income's so big. The money that comes in, but they don't treat the workers like they don't treat my dad's security guards like the Americans used to do it. The Americans are so nice, and yeah, don't worry, we'll help you. The other ones, they don't really care about them. Sometimes they wouldn't feed them. Oh, sorry, we ran out of food. Stuff like that. So those are, I think, you got to understand the culture before you go in and do business. And I can talk about this forever too, but yeah.
Well, if you connect it back to the leadership and power aspect, the United States is one of those hierarchy ones. So we have the hierarchy and this person is over this person, this over this person. If you go over to Japan, whoever's the oldest happens to be over the whole company. And that's how they get their positions. And you have to be, the most senior person. It kind of goes back to the family thing. But, when I did my project for intercultural communications class, we studied India. And in that culture, it's a class system. So I could be a female and come in with my legitimate power and they still won't listen to you. Mm-hmm. There's those obstacles. So in that aspect, you have to learn, you have to use, gain their respect, build that relationship, and kind of get that expert power to where they will trust you, because they won't, based off of their cultural aspects of that system. So legitimate power really holds no ground over there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Good point.
What's our time?
Well,
almost 30.
Yeah, we're almost 30, probably a good 25 minutes of conversation. I was kind of hoping that Ashley was able to reconnect in order to give some feedback.
Geometry dash.
It's my kids. I can't figure out how to get rid of it. So I was hoping that she would be able to reconnect. I text her to see if she can give some feedback, because her internet kept going in and out. She texted that she was really sorry. It just kept going in and out. So that's why I was keeping the conversation going instead of saying, okay, we're good. But even though it was great conversation, not denying that, but I can talk these things all day long. But
do we want to kind of decide? I don't know if we did decide. I didn't see any communication as far as what terms we're each taking, because I saw that we need to start that project. So did we decide who's taking what? And I know there's not enough terms, so some people are going to have to share. Or how do we want to fit that together?
Can we do that in text? Since we're missing two of the people, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that in text, or maybe we can start an email chain as well, because sometimes the text messaging, maybe for something like that, gets a little overwhelming.
Well, there's a discussion board on our group section. We could do that.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. if
That way it stays there so we can see everybody's reply.
But
and it
but
doesn't
make
get
sure to
emailed.
text in the group chat that we're doing it on the discussion board so they see it. Because sometimes you don't always get the notification.
Yeah, and did you guys figure out how to, when you're doing that in the discussion board, in here,
Yeah, right there, discussions.
Wait, what are you looking for?
so when you post a new discussion, you have to do enable comments when you do it. So allowed thread replies down here.
Mm-hmm. Isn't it the default?
No, it's not. At least it's not for me. It's not defaulted.
Oh.
Otherwise, no one can reply, and then everyone's like posting a brand new one.
Good call.
So if someone wants to take point on that, we could do that, or I don't mind.
It's not the default. You're going. Oh wow.
Yeah. So I think Ashley was trying to get us started, and then we had a whole bunch going, and something. Maybe they're gone.
I don't know. I don't even remember.
I think it was
what we're doing.
It was. Oh, maybe it was you, Casey. You had started this.
Yeah, I started those three.
Yeah. I guess I was the only one that replied to you.
It's okay. It's all
good. So we can go ahead and do that in a discussion, and then, and we'll both text and say everyone reply to Casey this time.
Can we also get, I don't have the list of terms that we chose that was submitted on behalf. I don't remember the full list. Do we have that? Because I thought she was going to send it to us.
Yeah.
Where do we find that?
Did she do a screenshot of it?
Well, she didn't. I thought she was going to email it to us, but I didn't see it.
Let's see, modules.
I think she did a screenshot of it.
Okay. I'll find it and we'll put it. I just wanted to know what terms we're looking for at.
Yeah, so yeah, she did screenshot it.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll get that started. I have to run an errand and then I'll do it later tonight. Does that work?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys.
Okay, see you guys later.
Bye.
Yep. All right. Thanks, everyone.